everyone. I'm Tina Purcells. Welcome to this rescheduled 2022 Family Links presentation called When to Push Through, When to Say No, and When to Let Go. I'm Tina Purcells. I'm a parent consultant for the Utah Family Voices Project, and I'll be the moderator today for this presentation. This presentation will last about 50 minutes, and I'll announce when there are 10 minutes remaining. After the presentation, we'd like to gather your feedback so that we can continue to make these events the best they can be. Our presenter today, Katie Greene, who we adore at the Utah Parent Center, works at the Parent Center as a parent consultant for families of children who are deaf or hard of hearing. Almost 4 years now she's been with us, and she loves every minute of it, right, Katie?
Every minute.
Okay. Helping families and advocating for their needs is one of her favorite things to do. Prior to working at the UPC, Katie worked as a health and fitness coach for over 8 years. Her two great passions in life are serving families and helping individuals take control of their health. Katie and her husband have 5 children, one of whom is profoundly deaf. All 5 are the source of her health problems and personal successes. That's an interesting one. Katie lives with 5 chronic health conditions herself, which was the motivation for her to become a health and fitness coach. She loves being active, reading, watching movies, or playing games with family, and traveling. I'm excited now to pass this time on to Katie.
Hey, thank you so much. That is really quite a true statement. My children are the source of all my problems. Okay. All right, you guys, I'm gonna share my screen here while you're waiting for me to do that. If you can just introduce yourself in the chat so we all know who is here. I really wanted this to be an interactive session. And so please feel free to use that chat because I want us to be able to kind of chat together and get to know each other. We are going to go back here. Okay, I'm finally where I want to share. Here we go. All right, so like Tina said, this is our session. When to say no, when to let go, and when to push through. I am Katie Greene. I'm really excited to be here. I'm so excited to, I wish I could see all your faces. I'm a people in person. So please bear with me while I try to pretend not to talk to myself. Okay. So, this is not working. There we go. Okay. So today we're going to be looking a little bit about some of the things, needs, I call them needs in our life, but you know, what's bringing stress into our lives? What are we doing currently to respond to stress or handle it? And we're going to specifically identify some of the expectations we have of ourselves and others, some of the expectations we feel like other people have of us, and how those expectations might be contributing to our stress and how to handle those. And then, of course, we're going to talk about some of the tools to help us raise more awareness and to increase our tolerance. So, Tina already introduced me wonderfully. All of those things are true about me. We do have we've added 2 puppies into our world. My husband likes to say that our lives are full, which I really love that. They are full. My daughter, who is profoundly deaf, is going to be 14 at the beginning of September. So we've got just a little over a month and a half before she is 14. And as she mentioned, I've been a health and a fitness educator. I actually am also a little bit of a spicy Italian. Not a little bit, a lot of it of a spicy Italian. And so I have had to learn how to use my voice and my enthusiasm to not just advocate for my child's needs and for our family's needs, but also for my own personal needs. And so again, learning my chronic illnesses are a huge tool, or kind of the tipping point of what kind of pushed me into really working, taking better care of myself and paying better attention to what's happening with myself and me being able to take care of my family. So we hear a lot about self-care, kind of a bit of a buzzword. But when you hear that word, what does it mean to you? Just throw in the chat, what does it mean to self-care with you? Thanks, Trish. Welcome, welcome. Okay. I like to think about self-care, being healthy, Tracy, don't do enough of it, guilt, filling my cup, giving yourself time to regroup, yeah, all those things for sure. Isn't it funny how we are feeling a little bit depleted, and so in addition to feeling depleted, we feel guilty on top of that? Like, isn't it interesting how we do that as humans? Julie says, doing something for myself before I take on anything else. Yeah, okay, good. Some good observations here. I like to think of it as like a pendulum. When I was thinking about this, I think a lot of times we think of it's either all over here, right? We're either only taking care of ourselves or we're only taking care of other people. And when I think of just like a pendulum, self-care also can't stay on either one of these extremes. We have to find a balance or a center, right? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And so, because you can't maintain, just like a pendulum can't maintain anything outside of its center of gravity without somebody holding it onto one end, I think our self-care is the same way. You can't maintain any extreme, if that makes sense. So let's discuss some of the things that are bringing stress. Saying no. Tracy said, saying no, not having to do everything. Absolutely, I think so too. I think so too, for sure. We're going to discuss that a little later. Some of the things that bring you stress. So go ahead and start typing in the chat. What are some things that bring you stress? I know for me, my kids, mostly like when I'm thinking about my kids, I'm thinking about like them achieving developmental milestones. Am I providing enough for them to be happy, healthy, well-rounded individuals? Am I teaching them enough? What are they doing in school? Their school projects, constantly fighting for school and the school system, worrying about our family, getting necessary things done, right? Daily tasks around our house. That's what I'm thinking of. Little to-dos or errands, being enough for my husband, for my kids, at my job, for other people, for myself, kind of a lot of pressure. That's what I think a lot, sometimes a lot of pressure. Like I feel like I must do everything is what Scott says. That's exactly kind of what I was thinking about too. Any of my responsibilities, anything else. My kids, so my daughter who is profoundly deaf, her name is Bella. I stress a lot about her everything. Like, is she getting enough access to the world around her? Is she learning enough? Is she on track? Her IEP meetings, her everything, mental and emotional health, social health, and actually all of my kids is social, emotional, developmental health. All of that is a big stressor, can be a lot, and their development. I think started a few lists here. So I was thinking about like the needs before us, like all these things that we have to take care of us. Sometimes it's medical bills. Like, let's see, advocating for myself and my kids and my career, Tori says, and the school system have to get involved so much to help advocate, right? It can be a whole separate thing. IUP 504 meetings is what I was thinking of. Sometimes just figuring out how to get kids where they're supposed to be on time or picking them up on time, the bills or medical appointments that they might need, cooking dinner. That is on my list too. It's on another list. Every single night, dinner, again, milestones, social emotional needs. If you have to deal with medical equipment, taking care of all of that in addition is a whole nother to-do list, right? Tori says when we have the 504s, it's a struggle to know what to have, right? Just what to do, what does she need? Coming up with any of that. Why is dinner every single day? It's like the laundry and dishes, they never end. Ever. So let's see. I'm sorry, you guys. I have to work on 2 different pages to see all of my notes. So I'm sorry. So just give me 1 second to get to the right notes here. All right. So when we're thinking about these, and how I want you to start thinking about how are you currently responding to stressors in your lives? What are you doing to cope? You know, when you've got a heavy day, a heavy month, a heavy year or 2 years like we've had, right? It's kind of been a little bit heavy, and it feels like it's just dragging on and on. And when I think about coping or handling things, I always think of like these picture perfect moments, right? Like you just get the snapshot of a picture perfect moment. You think, this is exactly how this is supposed to go, or this is how I feel in my mind it should go. But reality isn't always that way, right? I found recently, Brene Brown is one of my very favorite authors. I love her stuff. And she has a book called The Atlas of the Heart. And she says, she calls it this movie in our mind. So the movie in our mind is wonderful, but no one else knows their parts, their lines, or what it even means to us. So she actually calls these self-expectations in her book. And she says, when we expect others to behave and perform in a certain way, and they don't, we experience disappointment. And the more significant the expectation, the more significant the disappointment is. And so when we let go of those expectations, even if it's just of ourselves, focus on just what we can control, which is, again, ourselves, we begin to kind of let go a little bit of that stress. When we kind of let go of the expectations of how are the doctors going to respond? How are my kids going to respond? How is the medical appointment going to go? Or the IEP? Or how should the school or those behave? A lot of the stresses that we put on ourselves are just those kind of expectations. When I think of expectations, like I said, I think of this little picture portrait, right? So this would be fun to share. Family picture time, right? Who loves family pictures? I don't love family pictures. And I have a child, this one in pink, dislikes family pictures immensely, like, and has ever since she was a little one. Like usually she's crying or having some kind of a tantrum in all of our pictures. So we went to great lengths with our photographer for this session to figure this out. And then our poor photographer had a little minor hiccup and got to our session late. And she was just so upset, speaking of expectations, of how the session went, of how the pictures turned out. Like she insisted that she give us a new session for free, like she refunded us all our money, did another session. She wasn't actually going to give me any of our pictures from the first session. And this is from our first session. So this was our picture from our first session. And I will tell you now that we've done both of them, all of our favorite pictures were from this very first session. I just loved them. I loved how they all turned out. But because she offered to do another one, we did another one. And this is how those ones turned out. You'll see. My little daughter, 2 sessions was too much to ask for her. And if you'll notice, she's even holding a sucker. We went to insane lengths to please this child for our pictures. And because she and I were both, the photographer and I were both so busy trying to keep this child happy, we both forgot to notice that my glasses had turned to transitions and were sunglasses. It's just so ridiculous, but this is literally just for your entertainment, just for pure real life. One more, because if you weren't convinced she was unhappy in the first picture, this is how it went. And this session even went even shorter, but so I'm sure you can imagine we're here trying to do this, and my anxiety was through the roof because I'm thinking of what does she think about my child and her behavior, and how does that reflect on me? And you know, this is just one less stressful, or supposed to be non-stressful event, but it wasn't. So I want you to take a minute. Hopefully you've got some pen and paper. If you don't, notes or anything, grab some paper. But I want you to start to think about some of the needs that you are dealing with. And you're going to write those all along the bottom. And then along the side, on the top, I want you to kind of rate the level of energy required for you to do that. So you can use words if you want instead of numbers. This one just happened to be numbers. But you could do like no stress, easy, fills my cup, takes some energy at my limit. I'm gonna blow my top, whatever, whatever you want for that. But I want you to kind of start thinking about and being mindful of what are some of the things that you need or that are asked of you that you feel like are important and that you want to start managing a little bit more. So I'm just gonna give you a minute here to write down some of those. Just gonna give you a minute. And you can feel free, if you want to, you can type them in the chat box. If you're all done, feel free to pull those up in the chat box. But as you're thinking about that, like, I mean, think about, do you already know what are some things that trigger you? Do you know some of the things that are like when you get into a situation and you start feeling like, by the tone of somebody's voice, and you can feel like, I know I start getting like a little clammy, but my temperature starts to like rise. Okay, then I'm getting a note here. Okay. I start to get like a pit in my stomach as I'm in a situation. And of course, this doesn't have to be anything perfect. It just needs to make sense to you. So whatever is going to make sense to you. Okay. All right. We are going to move on to the next slide. All right. So everybody, I feel confident everybody is aware of this oxygen mask scenario, right? You get on an airplane and the stewardess explains the safety measures and protocols, and they tell you to make sure to secure your own mask before helping someone else. Right? I remember the first time I rode on an airplane with one of my children. My little girl, it was my oldest child, so my first kiddo, she was like just over a year old. And I remember they said that, and I was like horrified. Why would I take care of and put my own mask before I took care of my kiddo? What would happen if something happened to her? Well, I was trying to secure my own mask. And then what would I think? Now, I understand a little bit more, having 5 children and a little more things. I understand that concept a little bit more. And so I just want to kind of go a little bit in depth about understanding this concept of why is it important for us to secure our own oxygen. And in our case, I'm going to say our own needs and our own personal care. Why is that important to put before we're taking care of other people? So go ahead and throw it in the chat, some thoughts, feelings you might have. If you don't feel like it is, type that in too. You don't have to agree. Any thoughts there? Why do you think it's important to take care of yourself before you're taking care of somebody else? Tina said, let me go back up here. She said, sometimes I think about what my family would do without me, right? That's something. Burnout isn't any good for anyone. To be in a good place and have the energy to take care of others. Maria says, I'm a much better caregiver and personal around if I'm taking care of myself. And Deanna says, I always just do my children. Yeah. Nana says, I can't help my kids if I'm out of oxygen. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think, Tina, I was coming from the same place. Like, what happens if something happens to me? Not in a like a condescending way. Sometimes we want to do like, if something happened to me, this would all go to pot, right? Not like that, but as in like in a serious way, like what happens when I'm out of commission and I can't take care of anything. Mary says, if I crash, it seems like everyone else does too. Yeah, I've seen that too in my house. I've had a couple of scary incidences in my house, with my health, and having just like complete helplessness while you have like, and I always try to like remove it from my kids. Like I don't want my kids to see me. So I have rheumatoid arthritis. So that means like sometimes my joints freeze up. And the first time it happened, my entire body froze. Everything, like I couldn't bend my fingers. I couldn't grip around anything. Literally by the end of the day, I couldn't move any of my arms or shoulders or stand up straight. And at that time, so like I couldn't sign to my little girl who's deaf. And at the time, I think my youngest was 3. I think she was 3. But you know, I like try to hide and remove myself. I don't want them to see me in that state because there's absolutely nothing I can do for anybody. Not a thing. not a thing. Lisa said, because advocacy is a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah, for sure. You gotta have some stamina, right? But just thinking back to, like, if I am completely helpless, who's gonna take care of my kids? Trish says, sometimes it feels selfish to put self first when there isn't enough time to hit all the bases. Yeah, for sure, for sure. We have to like work through that. Why do I get time if somebody else doesn't, right? But I want you to think about, again, so like when your reservoir completely is empty, when you don't have anything else to give, how do you expect to be drawing from it? So I want us to think about, we're going to learn some ways to deal better with stressful situations and manage our responses to them. So right now, I want you to take a minute and go back to that little graph you made. And I want you to write down next to your stressful things, I want you to write down, what are you currently doing to help yourself, to manage stress in your life or to take care of yourself? So just anywhere that makes sense to you. This is just your thing. So wherever and however it makes sense to you, I want you to refer back to that and write down, what am I currently doing to help myself in these high stress or even low stress situations? What are you doing? Maria said it's hard to give yourself permission to take care of yourself. Sometimes you need to have someone else give you that permission, for sure. For sure, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to take just one more minute here. I'm just going to set a timer on my watch. We're going to let some people join us. So right now we're just taking a, you can take a bathroom break if you need to. We are just taking a minute right now to write down, what are you currently doing to manage the stressful situations that arise? Perfect. Perfect. Anna says, I give you permission to take care of you first. So there you go, Maria. Deanna says she's been trying to reduce anxiety by taking action on my anxiety, right? So Amanda does hypnotherapy, meditation, and radical acceptance. Okay. All right. Okay, and a new U program, exercise. So we're just sharing some of the things that we're currently doing. Therapy, knitting, saying no to everything that isn't essential. Cereal for dinner. That's right. That's right. So, and I think when I'm thinking about balance, I'm not thinking like everything needs to have an equal amount of your time and energy. I don't think of balance that way. When I'm thinking of balance, I'm thinking that when I'm in a specific situation, all of my energy and attention is there. And I'm prioritizing the things that are the most important to me and focusing on those things. Like some things, like Anna said, some things just aren't as important and I've had to learn to let them go. That's been a little bit hard for me to let go of. Some moms, sometimes it's hard for us to do that. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. The yoga, stepping back and breathing once a week, time with friends, shopping, something just for you, perfect. Sometimes it's just a trip around to walk into the TJ Maxx, that's for sure, for sure. Allowing yourself to read and tune out, these are perfect, perfect. Okay, we're gonna go on to the next thing, which is things we can control. And I know we've discussed things that we're already doing, but let's think about what can we control. We've discussed some of the things that require some of our attention and time, and some of the things that bring stress to our lives. But what are the things, and I know this is the shortest list and the fastest list you will ever make, because the only thing you can control in your life is yourself. The things that you think, the things that you do, the things that you say, and the feelings that you feel, those are all in your control. Everything else is completely outside of your control. And I learned this as a really young kid because my mom is a licensed clinical therapist. And so I grew up going to school with her. She finished her master's degree program while I was in middle school. I can't tell you, maybe I was in elementary, how many times I ended up going to classes with her because she was trying to do these things. And sometimes she couldn't get us back home before it was her class time. So sometimes we went to class with her. But anyways, so she taught me that a lot, that just focus on what you can control, focus on what you can control. Now, just because I learned all those things doesn't mean I have a master. I definitely am not a master at any of those things, but I also don't mean like in a selfish way, the things that you're controlling. I just mean paying attention to the things that you're thinking, to the things that you're doing, to the things that you're saying, to the things that you're feeling. Start to pay attention to that. And as we're doing, as you're trying to manage these, I think being aware of ourselves and what we're doing and how we're showing up can help to alleviate some of the stress and can help us show up better as we are doing that. And I think there's a few people might not be muted. So if you just jumped in, if you'll just make sure that you're muted. Definitely easier said than done, for sure. She says, I try to be as consistent as I can with taking care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually, but these things go hand in hand, and crossing over is helping with other areas for sure. For sure, definitely easier said than done. So right now, I want you to paint a picture of yourself. So you've got your paper and pen, and I want you to write out, how would you describe yourself to someone who maybe doesn't know you, or maybe to your best friend, or just how do you describe yourself? How do you see yourself? What is like your character, your personality? What are some of your interests and hobbies that you can or cannot include your family? I have a really hard time not identifying as a mom and a wife, but just start thinking about some of those things. Start writing that down. How would you describe yourself, your personality and character, interests, who you are, and how you show up? How would you describe that to somebody else? We're just going to take 1 minute. I'm going to set my timer. So write that down as you're thinking about that. How also do you want to think about yourself? How are you currently showing up for yourself? How do you talk to yourself? What are some of the thoughts that you have about yourself and the things that you do and say, or who you are? Do you show gratitude for yourself? If you do, how do you do that? And if you're done, and you feel free to throw those in the chat and share with other people if you want to. Are these things you've ever even thought about before? I know it took me, I didn't think about these things for a very long time. So lots of new things to me. Got about 10 seconds. Okay, time's up. Okay. Tina says, I try to show up for the things I feel responsible for. The problem is I feel responsible for way too much. And sometimes if it's not work or absolutely needed, I cancel. Yeah, sometimes. And sometimes I think, Tina, that is self-care, recognizing that something isn't absolutely needed. And even if it's at the last minute and you realize, I actually don't have space for this, I think that's okay. And I think that's just being true to yourself and recognizing what your limits are. So I love this quote. And there's no right or wrong answer here. This is just meant to kind of keep you going. This by a fellow named Kerry Muscara. He says, of all the terrible things you've worried about in your life, how many of them actually happened? And of all the terrible things that did actually happen, how much suffering was reduced through your preemptive? So kind of think about that. When you worried about something specific, I know we've all got at least one thing that we can think about, right? One thing. Actually, just pull that up. Just pull up one stressful situation. Anything that's causing you physical, emotional, mental stress of any kind. Just kind of think that. And the only rule is, like, if you're going to start thinking about this, you can't judge yourself while you're thinking about this, about whether what you did or was the right or wrong thing, okay? So thinking about that and worrying about that, did worrying ahead of time help reduce any of your suffering or negative emotion after it happened? Just kind of something to think about, just to kind of get your brain a little bit pliable there and in a different space. So while you're thinking about what are some of the thoughts, so you can write these down. What are some of the thoughts you have about that specific situation? And what are some of the things that you told yourself in that situation? And what do you think about it right now? Is it different or is it the same? So the same thoughts about it. We're just going to take a minute to give yourself a second to just pull that up and think about it. So we're just thinking about some kind of a stressful situation, and we're just writing down some of our thoughts about it, some of our feelings about it, and some of our thoughts and feelings about how we showed up. Okay. We got about 10 more seconds here. Okay, so everybody got it? Now that you have those, I want you to go back to the notes you made about how you want to show, about how do you want to be. And think about what might you need to do to be able to be that person that you want to be. So something my mom also taught me, I was kind of going through a little bit of this with her. So this is basically an exercise in mindfulness. That's basically what we're doing right now. And she taught me that about at least the importance of mindfulness is that depression is caused by focusing on the before or things that have already happened and maybe stewing about it, playing about our minds. I'm sure we've all done this at least once or twice. And you like replay the scenario, replay how you responded or didn't respond, the way things somebody said or didn't say. Those are things that are cause depression, focusing on the before. Focusing on the future is what causes anxiety. So thinking about things that are going to happen, how is it going to be, who's going to say what, where are we going to be, what time will it end, any of the things that are going to happen in the future. Those are things I call anxiety. So the point of mindfulness and the reason why it's helpful is because it brings us back to the present, which is again where our control is. Now we can think about how we want to behave in the future and play in our minds that we have control over how we want to show up. But since it hasn't happened yet, we technically don't have control over that. So mindfulness is bringing it back to the present where we have all the control, focusing on all of those things kind of outside it are always going to bring extra stress into our lives. One thing I learned that I really like to do to kind of help me kind of narrow in and focus on just right now is a method called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if some of you might know this, but it's basically 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, 2 things you can taste. I always mess this up. 1 thing you can taste and 2 things you can touch. So basically all 5 of your senses. Just kind of thinking about what's around you right now. What can you smell? Let's see if I missed the smell. 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. So what is there a smell around you? What are you currently hearing right now? What can you see in the room around you? So that kind of is an exercise to bring us into our focus right now. And it can kind of help us tune out kind of some of that extra outside noise. Okay, so one of the things that I do for myself is I have a life coach who I love. Her name is Jody Moore, and she said this, and I think this is really helpful. She said, we don't need to know what to do, we need to know what to think. So sometimes we just need to refocus on our thoughts. We can do, because we can have the exact same situation happen over and over again. We can do the exact same action over and over again. We can have a completely different experience based on what we're thinking. So I want to come through and think about some thoughts that might be frustrating or helpful, or like when we get overwhelmed, I know I go into, I just can't do this anymore. I don't have any more else to give. Things like that. Does anybody else kind of go into that space of like, I'm just overwhelmed, I got to shut her down? That's some of the things. So instead of doing the, I can't keep doing this, we could say, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, yay me. Who's ever given yourself a pat on the back for showing up at your kid's IEP meeting? Like, The teacher isn't usually going to thank you, or the admin, or your kid, right? Your child doesn't usually thank you. Like, give yourself a little pat on the back. I can't believe I'm showing up and I'm doing this because I care or because I want to, whatever the reason is. Instead of thinking, why didn't they do fill in the blank? Why didn't they, whatever we think that they should have done, we can come with a little bit of curiosity and say, I wonder why they did whatever it was they did, and have a genuine curiosity to understand and figure out what it is, where they might be coming from. There are things called bridge thoughts, which is basically saying, if I don't know something, I don't know what's going to happen, I don't know where we're going to go, we can say yet. We just add yet to the end of it, and we all of a sudden have a magical new powerful statement. Instead of feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, we can feel a little bit encouraged, or at least less overwhelmed. Like, I don't know yet. I don't know, but I know somebody knows. Like, we're in the age of technology, right? We can find anything out. And even if I haven't figured it out, I know somebody else has figured it out. So that means I can figure it out. Or if we are in a situation when we're in an IUP, we might be ready to leave and dash out the door. We're like, when is this going to be over? We can say, it isn't over yet. It's over yet, but we'll get there. We're going to make it. And then something else I really love to say is, and then what? So that kind of helps pull me out of this like cycle, the spin cycle I go through of like, maybe we're helping a kiddo with their homework, right? And we don't really want to be doing that. But my brain can just go, okay, Brett, and then what? Then what are we going to do? And it just kind of gives me a second to just kind of decompress from this frustrated or overwhelmed or stressed emotion. And it takes me to a different thought. So I've got a fun little video. I'm going to give you we're going to watch a little Sesame Street video. Hope that's okay. Hold on. I'm going to start this over again. Hold on. So we can start it from the beginning. Okay, ready?
Oh, how does it go?
These no look right.
Oh, we'll never get this.
Oh, you missed the drum.
No!
There. 2 plus 2. Oh boy. Emma will never get it right.
You tried to add, but the numbers came out wrong. You tried to sing, but you didn't know the whole song. You tried to cook, but the food it didn't taste right. You tried to dunk, but you didn't get enough hype. You didn't do it right now, but keep trying. You learn how. You just didn't get it yet, but you'll get it soon, I bet. That's the power of a yet. Yet. That's the power of a yet. Yet. That is what you get with the power of a yet. Come on, you tried to ride, but you couldn't make the letter R. You tried to jump, but you didn't make it very far. You tried to drum, but you couldn't find a downbeat. You tried to dance, but you tripped on your own feet. Just breathe, don't lose control. Keep trying and you reach your goal. You just didn't get it yet, but you'll make it soon, I bet. That's the power of a yet. Yet. That's the power of a yet. Yet. Ready, get set. The power of a yet. Break it down now. There's no mountain you can climb. It just takes a little time. 'Cause you got what it takes just to learn from your mistakes. Try again, and one day you'll step. You try to add and you get the right answer. You sing the song and you be a great dancer. You dunk the ball and you make the right letter. Everything you do it better. This is what you get. 'Cause this is what you get. 'Cause this is what you get with the power of a yet. That's the power of a yet. And that is what you get. And that is what you get. Woo! And that is what you get with the power of a yet. My skin is a dark brown. It's like.
Okay. Let me go back to. Right. I just love this because it just kind of reminds us, like, even though we're not kids anymore, right? But hopefully, like, it just kind of pulls us out of like that kind of that negative space that we kind of get stuck in. And sometimes just our anxiety and emotions can feel overwhelming. And so even though, like, we're not learning how to write, most of us aren't learning how to write, or the point is just that anything that we do, we're not always going to get it perfectly right. And that in and of itself, that having that expectation of ourselves to do it right creates some of that anxiety that we don't necessarily need to put on ourselves. So just to remember that everyone is working on their own thing, just to have a little bit of grace and patience with yourself. And if you don't know right now, you're going to figure it out, and you're completely capable of doing that. So we're going to start talking about some of the things that can be considered self-care. And this is completely endless. The whole point is that you just find and identify something that works for you. For me, I do appreciate a good hug and love with my kids, but I love also a little bit of chocolate. So of course, Charles says, all you need is love, but a little chocolate every now and then doesn't hurt either. So just remember that these things don't have to take up a ton of your time. It doesn't have to be time intensive. It doesn't have to be every single day, but something that just fills your cup. So some of the things that fill my cup might not fill your cup, and vice versa, and that's okay. So just start thinking about some of the things that you like to do that you haven't done in a while that maybe you miss. So one of the things I like to do, and I think a couple of this have mentioned in our notes, but just taking our things to do and just maybe clearing it out a little bit, taking out some things that maybe aren't quite as necessary, or maybe not the most important, or not really where you want to spend your time or energy. And I give you full permission to let yourself take some of those things off your plate. Like, you don't have to do everything. If you need someone to give you permission, I am doing it right now. Just take away some of the things that you don't love. If you love to craft, make something. If you like to read or watch movies, take a bath. I recommend locking the door if you want privacy and you are able to. Movement is really important, that it's appropriate for you. You don't have to, like, run a marathon or even 5 miles or even 1 mile. Like, just take a walk around the block, especially if you can combine that with time with somebody that you really love. There's more on this list. That's an even great thing to do. Take multitask and get more than one person in at the same time. If you have kiddos who are old enough, or just anybody that you want to spend time with, is a great way for you to get time with friends that fill your cup and a little bit of movement. So it's okay to multitask. And I really encourage you to start saying no when you really don't have space or energy for things. It's really freeing, because you're really just being honest with yourself. Nobody else has to live your life. This is what I like to tell people. Nobody else has to live your life but you. So nobody really understands what it is that you might be taking on. And if it's really too much, then it's too much, and it's okay. So we're going to talk about a few resources and things. Oh, I lost my notes. Hold on just a second. All right. So again, I already mentioned Corey Mascara. He's on Instagram, and you can sign up for free daily text with him. And he just sends you just like a cool quote of the day, just something to kind of get your mind going in a positive space and just kind of get you thinking. Some of the podcasts that I like to listen to, feel free, please write in the chat if you have some really great podcasts or books or blogs that you really find helpful. Please write those in and share them with others. I like to listen to the Better Than Happy podcast. That's the one by my life coach, Jody Moore. And the Life Coach School is with Brooke Castillo. She's really cool, and they have a broad range of topics. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. Ed Milet is somebody I really like to listen to. The Unlocking Us podcast by Brene Brown. The Brendan Show, that's Brendan Burchard. And Key Nutrition. Key Nutrition is with, I just lost his name, but I'll share it somewhere. Brad Jensen, that's his name. He does fitness and nutrition. So anything about things that you're putting into your body and how you're moving. So those are kind of interesting and fun. But yeah, so Brad Jensen, we can share. Yes, after. Yeah, we can. We can share those, Rebecca. And I personally recommend a life coach. I think that's super helpful just to help you be aware of your mind. That's basically what your life coach is. And then of course yourself. You are a much bigger and more powerful resource than you might imagine. But what I really want to point out is that the way that you speak to yourself and treat yourself, I want you to start thinking about, is that equal to the way that you speak to the people you love, like genuinely love and cherish? If you start treating yourself like somebody you genuinely love and cherish, you would be able to be more aware of when you have stuff to give. So I want you to start thinking about how are you talking to yourself. So just over the next 24 hours, I want you to write down 5 things that you like about yourself. Just 5 things. It can be physical, big, small, mental, emotional, just 5 things you like about yourself. And then 5 things, basically 5 affirmations, 5 things that you're capable of. I like power statements. It can be, I am strong, I am smart, I'm capable, I am youthful, I am powerful, anything that resonates to you, but just come up with 5. So, and I want you just for one day, just to start your day off with your 5 things you love about yourself. And anytime you're feeling overwhelmed throughout the day, to sound out those 5 powerful I am statements, because you're basically talking about who you are. So use that. And then at the end of the day also, one of my favorite things that I have learned recently is Brooke Castillo shared this up from the Life Coach School. She shares, she winks at herself and sends herself flowers every single week. And I thought, how fun would that be, just to send yourself flowers or wink at yourself? Like, start to cultivate a real genuine appreciation for who you are and the things that you do and what you are, like what makes you you. So we're about out of time. I want to have some time for question and answers, but the key thing I want you to take away is that when you know yourself and you honor yourself, you will always know when you have something to give, when you don't. Self-care is not really about being selfish. I think it's about being self-aware and knowing what you have when it's time for you to give, when it's time for you to take, and time for you to just pause. And only you are going to know those moments. Nobody else can tell you when it's your time. And if you need permission, I give you permission right now. You feel free to email me or text me, and I will give you permission. Like, only you're going to know when those moments are. And if you don't start taking them, then it does just kind of belittle and take away from yourself. But when you start to honor those, it really does bring greater self-awareness. It helps build your confidence and your capacity, honestly, to share and to give with those around you. So thank you so much for being here with me. Maria said, that just made me laugh out loud. I need to start sending flowers or buying a shirt or something, for sure. Send yourself your favorite thing, like you would for your best friend, you know? So treat yourself like you're your best friend. You're totally worth it. You deserve it.
Hey guys, we got a couple of things here. Katie, you're amazing.
You're so sweet.
First off, I just wanted to, your I am statements made me think a lot of when I watched my son in the classroom, and he spent 2 years virtual. And so I spent a lot of time with him in the classroom. And after each completed activity, and my son's in functional skills class, but they do an I can statement. And it's kind of like patting yourself on the back, you know, and these are, you know, these kids are learning some pretty complicated things for their development. And so afterwards, you know, the teacher will say, you know, we just finished our math class and let's do our I can statement. I can sort items I can sort money to the correct dollar, or I can, whatever it is they might be doing at that time. And it's kind of cool because everybody gives themselves on a pat on the back, and you know, they might have thought they couldn't do it in the beginning, but they could.
Yeah.
So they're, yeah. Guys, I want you to know there's about 10 minutes here, 9 minutes for some questions and talk with Katie. Katie, I want to thank you for presenting. First of all, it's important information for us parents. It really is. And before we end our meeting, we always love to hear from our audience, what was helpful, what we're doing well, and what we can improve on. You'll see a window pop up right now that should start your poll, and it's just a couple of questions for you to answer. Please take a moment to fill it out. This is information that is anonymous and will be shared with presenters and our committee to see how we can improve. And then as you finish polling, I'd like to let you know about 2 other upcoming Family Links events. Tonight at 6 p.m. we'll be hosting a presentation all about tools for decision-making, including supported and substituted decisions, presented by our Jenny Dopp here at the Parent Center. Also on August 18th, we'll be hearing from Andrea at the National Ability Center, all about the programming available for adaptive sports and recreation. If you're interested in either of these presentations, click the links in the chat. I'll put them there right now, or contact the Utah Parent Center.
Right. Does anybody have any questions? Any final thoughts? I rushed through our resources because I thought we were short on time, but hi, and I'm a child back. So thank you, Deanna. Thank you. I think if I could go back and just touch on something, if I have more time, I would say as your self-care, if you don't do anything else, focus on sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things you can do for your body. It's when your body rejuvenates and restores. All things are resetting. Like, even if you should be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. If you have chronic illnesses or anything else, it sometimes should be closer to 9 or 10. But again, only you are going to know what is enough. If you are not anywhere close to that, start with adding half an hour once a night for like a week, and just increase it by a half an hour, because that will just do wonders for your ability to process and to problem solve. And it's just really great. It's a great tool that's easy. And I could have honestly a whole separate presentation just on lifestyle and how to take care of better, because those are really important. So I didn't check for questions. Questions. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Yeah, Rebecca. My 4-year-old got home early. Sorry, you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. And you've all got my email. You're welcome to reach out and email me anytime. I'm happy to help however we can. There's my child's hiding under the table. You can't see him. Just hear him. I'm sorry, you guys. Thanks for being here with us today. I really appreciate it, and for being so kind.